Vikings, Rites of Passage. The birth of a legend. The northern winds howled across the battlefield, carrying with them the echoes of dying men. Ragnar Lothbrok stood in the midst of the chaos, his breathing steady despite the blood that soaked his tunic. He turned his head slowly, his piercing blue eyes scanning the field of fallen warriors. The clash of steel and the cries of the dying still rang in his ears. In the distance, the dark silhouette of a raven circled above, watching. It was then that he saw them, figures draped in shimmering armor, their long braided hair flowing as they moved like ghosts across the battlefield. The Valkyries. Ragnar watched in awe as they lifted the fallen, carrying their spirits away to Valhalla, where they would feast forever with the gods. His heart pounded in his chest. This was what he had always dreamed of: to die with honor, to be chosen by the gods. But as quickly as the vision came, it was gone. The battlefield faded into mist, and Ragnar blinked. When his eyes refocused, he was no longer in a dream. He was in the real world, standing beside his brother, Rollo, over the bodies of the men they had just slain. The stench of death filled his nostrils. The sun was setting in the distance, casting an eerie golden light over the landscape. "You see them too, brother?" Ragnar asked. His voice was filled with reverence. Rollo scoffed, kicking over the corpse of a fallen warrior. "You and your visions," he muttered. "The only thing that matters is that we are alive, and they are not." Ragnar glanced at his older brother. Rollo was larger, more brutish, and stronger in a raw sense, but he lacked Ragnar's vision. While Rollo lived for the battle in front of him, Ragnar was always looking ahead, beyond the fight, beyond the village, beyond the fjords. The two brothers gathered their weapons and began their long journey home to Kattegat, the village where they were born. Ragnar's mind, however, was restless. The Valkyries, the whispers of Odin in the wind, these were signs. Signs that the gods had chosen him for something greater. Kattegat. The land of the Vikings, Kattegat, was a rugged land of towering mountains, deep fjords and endless forests. Smoke curled from wooden huts and the scent of roasted meat filled the air. The villagers moved with purpose, blacksmiths hammering iron, fishermen gutting their catch, women weaving cloth. Ragnar and Rollo arrived just as the sky darkened. Their return was met with cheers and drunken laughter. The warriors had won, and their spoils of battle would feed the people for another season. Lagertha, Ragnar's wife, stood in the doorway of their home, her arms crossed. She was no ordinary woman. She was a shield maiden, a fierce warrior in her own right. Her golden hair was pulled back, her piercing eyes watching Ragnar carefully. "You're late," she said, her voice sharp but not unkind. Ragnar smirked. The road was long. She stepped forward and punched him in the chest, hard. Ragnar barely flinched. He knew this was her way of greeting him. She was testing him, making sure he was still strong. "And did you dream of the gods again?" she asked, tilting her head. Ragnar hesitated, then nodded. "They showed me something, a new world beyond the sea." Lagertha's expression darkened. "You mean the foolish talk of an unknown land? You cannot be serious, Ragnar." But he was. More than anything, he was. The ambition of a farmer every summer. The Vikings of Kattegat raided the east, across the Baltic Sea into the lands of the Slavs. It was tradition, a way of life. But Ragnar was no longer satisfied with tradition. He had met a wanderer, a man, who spoke of a land far across the western seas, a land untouched by Viking hands, a land filled with treasures. Ragnar wanted to see it with his own eyes. But there was one obstacle in his way: Earl Haraldsson, the ruler of Kattegat. Haraldsson was a man of power and control. He decided where the raids would go, and he had no interest in the wild dreams of a young farmer. He was cautious, seeing Ragnar's ambition as dangerous. "Why risk everything for a land that may not even exist?" the Earl said when Ragnar spoke of his vision. "We raid where we know the riches are, The East has always provided for us. Ragnar clenched his jaw. He knew arguing was useless, but he had already made his choice. He would find a way to sail west, with or without the Earl's permission. The mad shipbuilder, in the depths of the forest, hidden away from prying eyes, lived a man named Floki. He was a genius, but also a madman, laughing at the wind and talking to trees. He believed the gods whispered to him through the wood. Ragnar visited him under the cover of night. "I have an idea," Ragnar said, his voice low. "A ship, faster, stronger, one that can cross the open ocean." Floki's eyes gleamed. "The gods have already told me about you, Ragnar Lothbrok. They say you are special, and I believe them." He led Ragnar to a hidden dock, where the skeleton of a new kind of ship rested. It was longer, sleeker. It could ride the waves rather than fight them. Ragnar ran his hands over the wood, feeling the promise in it. "We build this and we sail west," Ragnar said. Floki grinned. "Then we build, my friend, the rites of passage." While Ragnar's mind was filled with dreams of the West, his son Bjorn was about to take his first step into manhood. The village gathered for a sacred ceremony. The seer, an old, twisted oracle, awaited Bjorn in the great hall. His face was deformed, his eyes clouded with visions. He was said to speak with the gods themselves. Bjorn stepped forward, nervous but determined. He knelt before the seer, who placed a hand on his head. "You are your father's son," the seer whispered, "and you will walk in his shadow." For now, Bjorn was given an arm ring, a symbol of his new status as a man. He looked up at Ragnar, who nodded in approval. But the seer was not finished. His blind eyes turned toward Ragnar. "You seek a great destiny," he murmured, "and it will come. But know this. Your journey will be filled with suffering. The gods will test you. You will rise higher than any man before you, but at a terrible cost." A chill ran down Ragnar's spine. Yet as he stood beneath the stars that night, gazing toward the horizon, he knew one thing: nothing would stop him from reaching the west. The age of Vikings had begun.